Welcome everyone. I'm Julia and I'm here today to talk about assumptions in critical reasoning questions. In critical reasoning arguments, assumptions function as the bridge between the premises and any background info and the author's conclusions. Because they are unstated by definition, it's good to get in the habit of being aware of them when working through CR problems. Today, we're going to use some target test prep practice questions to develop this skill. Let's start with an easy problem so you can see the mechanics of the process. People who do yoga tend to be healthier than people who do not do yoga. We are going to offer yoga classes at our company. Therefore, the people who work at our company will become healthier. Which of the following has the author assumed in making the prediction? You can tell from the question that this will be about finding an assumption. Also, as a matter of due diligence, we should identify the conclusion, which is here and is helpfully indicated by the word therefore. That's what we need to bridge to the premises here and here. Let's look at the answer choices. A, people will sign up for and attend the yoga classes. Okay, this one is a pretty straightforward assumption. If people aren't signing up for or taking the classes, then how do we connect the premise people who do yoga are healthier than people who don't with offering yoga at our company will lead to healthier employees? They'd have to be taking advantage of the classes to benefit. Let's look at the other choices to see if there are any better ones. B, people at the company do not have time to attend yoga classes. This is not an assumption the argument relies on. This assumption would weaken the argument. So the author that wrote this conclusion clearly doesn't assume that employees are too busy to participate in the classes. C, yoga improves people's health by strengthening their hearts, muscles, and immunity. This one is irrelevant because one of the GMAT argument rules is that all of the premises must be taken as true. The premise already states that people who do yoga are healthier. It doesn't really matter why that's the case. D, the healthier people are, the more productive they will be at work. This one is getting a little ahead of itself and is therefore also irrelevant. The argument is that people will be healthier after the company starts offering yoga classes than they were before. What happens after that isn't the concern of this argument. And E, doing yoga is the only way for a person to become healthier. Entirely out of scope and also absurd enough to make it suspicious. The argument is saying that doing yoga equates to better health, but not exclusively. Answer is going to be A. On the island of Lakahoa, numerous giant stone statues have been found. It is believed that these statues were used for marking sacred areas by people who inhabited Lakahoa in ancient times. However, a few of the statues remain in the area around the quarry where all of the statues were produced. Clearly, therefore, ancient inhabitants of Lakahoa did not believe those few statues to be of sufficiently high quality for marking sacred areas. Which of the following is an assumption on which the argument relies? Okay, the conclusion here is also indicated by summation transition words. What assumptions would connect these first three sentences to this last conclusion sentence? Let's look. The ancient inhabitants of Lakahoa did not have the ability to transport the few remaining statues to sacred areas. Okay, this undermines the conclusion because it offers an alternative reason for the statues to be where they are than the author states. It can't be an assumption that this author is relying on. B, there were no differences between the levels of quality of the statues used in sacred areas. This one is closer to an assumption that the author could be making, but it doesn't work because it's too vague. If all of the statues at the sacred areas are like 8 to 10 out of 10, these ones could still be 6s and the argument could still work. C, the number of giant stone statues on Lakahoa in ancient times was the same as the number there now. This isn't relevant because we're not talking about the number of statues. It doesn't impact the argument. D, the area around the quarry was not considered sacred by ancient inhabitants of Wakahoa. This is an assumption the argument relies on. Consider if the opposite was true and the area around the quarry was revealed to be an area the ancient Wakahoans considered sacred. The whole argument falls apart. And E, all of the ancient inhabitants of Wakahoa had the skills required for assessing the quality of a stone statue. This one is irrelevant. All of the people at my office don't know how to do my job, but that doesn't mean that we as an office don't offer those services. Not everyone needs to know how to do it for the ancient Wakahoans to be able to, as a society, measure the quality of statues. So best answer is going to be D. Let's look at one more that's a little more difficult still. While diamonds are not as rare as some other types of gemstones, the companies that mine diamonds restrict the number of diamonds that they make available and thus create the impression that diamonds are rare and therefore valuable. Since demand for diamonds is increasing as more people are able to afford them, as long as the companies that mine diamonds continue to restrict the number of diamonds that they make available, diamond prices will not decrease substantially. Which of the following is an assumption upon which the above conclusion depends? Okay, don't fall for that, therefore. That is not the conclusion. The conclusion is actually here. This is an interesting argument because if the supply and demand for diamonds wasn't altered to artificially inflate prices and the demand increased due to increased wages, the supply would no longer be able to keep up at that price, and the price would increase until supply and demand were again in agreement. But that's not what the conclusion states here. It says prices will not decrease substantially. An excellent reminder to read questions carefully because they don't always go the way you think they will. Let's check out these answer choices. A, demand for diamonds will increase to a point such that diamond prices would remain at their current levels even if supply were not artificially restricted. This isn't an assumption the argument relies on. It goes further than the author's conclusion, which still mentions restricting the supply of diamonds to alter price. B, demand for non-diamond gemstones, such as rubies and emeralds, will not increase substantially. This one is also a bit of a stretch. It touches on the concept of substitute goods, but that would require more comprehension than a GMAT question would expect you to have about economic theory. C, it would not become more difficult for diamond mining companies to restrict the number of diamonds that they make available were additional large mineable deposits of diamonds found. This, too, is a little out of scope. In particular, it doesn't work because of this contingent aspect of the conclusion that mentions were they able to continue to restrict the diamonds that they make available, then diamond prices would not decrease substantially. So because that is included, this potential eventuality is irrelevant to the argument. D, laboratories that make artificial diamonds will never produce and sell in significant quantities diamonds that are indistinguishable from mined diamonds. Here we go. This answer is just detailed enough to work. If labs did produce and sell large amounts of artificial diamonds that were not subject to the constraints of the diamond mining company's market manipulation tactics, then it could be true that the companies could still be restricting the number of diamonds they make available. And it could also be true that the price of diamonds significantly decreased, rendering this conclusion invalid. This is an assumption that the argument relies on. And finally, E, the price of a diamond not only depends on the supply of and demand for diamonds, but also is affected by the quality of the diamond. This choice is irrelevant. It is also a good chance to more clearly illustrate a trick I've been using for testing assumptions. If this was true, could the argument hold? So if the price of a diamond not only depends on the supply of and demand for diamonds, but also is affected by the quality of the diamond, could this conclusion be true? Yes. What about if this isn't true and the price of a diamond isn't contingent on the quality at all, but only on supply and demand? Could this conclusion be true? Also, yes. So because it's yes either way, this cannot be an assumption that this argument relies on. So best answer is going to be D. Thank you so much for hanging out with me and working through these assumption problems. I hope that you've enjoyed learning about the importance of assumptions. Best of luck, and I will see you next time.